Hello friends, welcome to Manga College, the podcast where we deconstruct the art of storytelling for manga, comics, and all forms of sequential art. My name is Ziki Nelson, I'm a comic book writer, and I'm usually joined by my co-host Bill Masuku, who is a writer and artist himself. However, he can't join us today. Instead, I have a wonderful guest for you guys. I have Federico Ponce, who is an all-round creative polymath and one of the greatest minds that I have had the pleasure of speaking with in my very short life. Recently, Fede has been consulting with BMW and Infinity for all of their future projects, meaning that he's in charge of autonomous design for vehicles, smart cities, etc. And you might be wondering, well, what does that have to do with manga and comics? Well, today we're going to be talking about world building and science fiction. And so because Fede has an insider view on a lot of these future technologies, I think that he'll have a lot of useful nuggets of information and advice for a lot of us, at least most of us who are interested in incorporating elements of sci-fi into our stories. But beyond his insider view into technology, Fede is a storyteller and artist himself. He's worked as an art director on a number of Marvel films, and he's also studied under some of the greats like Guillermo Del Toro, an accomplished Hollywood director. And finally, he's worked on his own projects as well. He's written scripts, he's sold scripts, he's actually a working screenwriter, he's sold scripts. I think he's currently in talks with a streaming platform, although I'm not allowed to say which one he's in talks with. And finally, he's working on his own passion project, which is called the Slumberland Odyssey, a futuristic sci-fi, science fiction and fantasy story set in the far future. And it's a multimedia universe, meaning that it takes place across a number of mediums, including film, television, and comics as well. So he does have experience writing for comics. In any case, I'm going to stop pontificating and welcome him to the show. So Fede, glad to have you here.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to geek out.
So I want us to look at the world of the Slumberland Odyssey, and then also understand the world building process that has gone behind it. Because at least based on the amount of information that you gave me in our previous conversation, it felt like a little bit of an encyclopedia. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to unpack. So why don't you tell listeners about the Slumberland Odyssey, the sort of journey that you've taken with that project, and then we'll start to unpack things from there.
Sure, absolutely. So it's basically, at the core, a very simple story. So it's a utopian future where the act of dreaming has been punishable by death. And so, people are no longer allowed to dream, quite literally. And there's this young boy named Sebastian who cannot stop himself from dreaming. He daydreams, he sleeps, dreams at night, and it gets, himself and his family in trouble, and he becomes a little bit of an outcast because of that. And the notion that dreaming is dangerous is because it basically fuels individuality, and individuality has been proven to be a major cause of destruction in previous societies. It breeds war, it breeds desire, it breeds consumption, etc., and so people are no longer allowed to dream, and the entity that sort of monitors and takes control of all of this is something akin to the singularity, and
yes.
It's this artificial intelligence that has sort of taken care of humanity, and it's not an artificial intelligence in the sense of Terminator or any of the modern dystopias. It's actually a compassionate, loving AI that has taken all steps and calculations and algorithms to basically take care of humans. In this world, there is a little bit of a glitch, and Sebastian, this young boy, dreams. And as he continues to dream, his grandfather, who's also kind of a rebel, encourages him and guides him through these journeys, through these dreams. And through there, they will start discovering and unraveling a very deep and unsettling truth about this reality.
What I like about, the first thing that struck me about Sebastian's Odyssey when I first came across it is the fact that you've taken more of the future is utopian rather than dystopian. I think post-apocalyptic future, dystopian future is extremely common in science fiction, but you've said actually humanity has everything it needs. All it is that it just requires this one sacrifice, which is sacrificing our ability to dream or our individuality. So this idea that if we just give up our individuality for the needs of the collective, almost like a group of ants, then we can be happy. We can live for very long. We don't have to worry about sickness. We don't have to worry about war. And so what I'm curious is, why have this really compassionate artificial intelligence leading over humanity versus, say, maybe a more authoritarian kind of leader?
Sure. Thank you. Great question. And I think, without any disrespect to anybody out there, for me personally, my own view of the writing and the creative process is that if you think of the world as good and bad, then choices become very easy, and almost there are no choices at all. So if you're in a dystopia and you have freedom fighters, well, that's there's no creative exercise, there's no drama, there's no possible grand arc. There's no mystery to be resolved. It's all there for you. You have antagonistic forces very present, and you have your heroes, and they can take different shapes. But if the world is already set in very definite black and white morality, then there's no challenge as a writer, right? I think it's a little bit more satisfying to have, number one, what you established, I love it. It's like, okay, if you could have anything in the world, but you'd had to give up this one thing, what would that thing be, right?